The conversation of your life. Local, relevant, digital, and always on.
America will hear my 2 cents.
Elected to serve iHub radio listeners across the desert cities. He calls it as he sees it.
Quick question.
Now, here's Russ Betts.
Someone answer him now!
All right. Well, we've got an hour in the bank already here on the Russ Betts Show. Just joining us, you missed a pretty lively conversation with myself. I'm here alone in the studio today. Our co-host Joe McKee has taken the week off, but hey, good to have you with us. Going ahead, we've got another hour ahead of us, and if you're a renter out of work and wondering how you're going to get by, I think you're going to give a listen to this next segment. And if you're a landlord wondering how you're going to make the mortgage with no rent coming in, well, give a listening. We've got joining us today in the studio is Haddon Libby.
Hey, Russ.
Hey, you're on the air. Look at that. That worked.
Yeah.
Okay, just by way of introduction, you're at Winslow Drake Investment Management. And basically, your lot in life is helping people figure out how to do better financially. And
basically. Yeah. What I do, just to give you a background so you have a little bit of a framework, currently I own an investment management company. We've had it for 5 years. And along with that, I help a lot of individuals, businesses, with their investing, right? Whether it's a 401k or what people are planning on for retirement. But when this came up, well, besides managing the money, a lot of people are now looking at how do I keep my business going, or a 1099 worker, how in the world am I going to pay my rent? And my background included being a banker to bankers. And what does that mean? I would help bank CEOs and CFOs running their own banks. In fact, I ran a little bank for a couple of years, trying to help them during the depth of the 2007-2008 problems. And so what I'm doing is I'm just dusting off my old contacts, both myself and my business partner, and we're getting the information together from different sources, whether it's banks, the SBA, friends like Joe Wallace over at Coachella Valley Economic Partnership. So we're gathering the information and trying to disseminate it to as many people as we can, since there's been a real problem, as I've seen it, with getting the information out to the average Joes.
Well, I saw your,
like me, the average person.
I saw your post on social media, and it was actually I started taking notes, and I said, we got to get this information out here. So happy to have you on here, and that's what we're going to do here. You talk about people not knowing what to do. Most people are going about their daily lives, running whatever kind of shop they have, hair salon or whatever it might be. All of a sudden this comes along, and now they're thrown into the world of paperwork and applications and where do I get help? Or if you're a 1099 worker and all of a sudden you're not working, give us some help here. What can we look for? I mean, how do we get through this?
So let's walk it through for your typical 1099 worker, because I've heard this from a lot of people. I have friends who are everything from working in restaurants to making films, to comedians, to just single-person businesses, all right? Those are all, if you're getting a 1099, you're a 1099 worker. And for the purposes of a lot of the relief, that you have a couple of ways to go about getting the money that you need to get through this pandemic, okay? So I guess we should start with the first things you need to do until you can get government relief, right? Because, the first thing you can apply for would be at SBA.gov. They have an emergency loan, $10,000 loan anybody can get. That would be running their own business. So that could be a sole proprietorship, somebody gets 1099. You want to go to SBA.gov and apply for that $10,000 loan. Theoretically, it's supposed to take 3 days to get to you, but I've heard anecdotally from numerous people that it's been a week and they haven't heard from anybody.
Wait, 3 days to get back to you or 3 days to get the 10,000?
Oh, to get the money, for you to get the 10,000.
Really?
Once you have a completed application, which is pretty simple.
So that's the website. That's the website you go to. I went and actually did that for our hair salon. And right. I was surprised at how good a job they've done finding the information. I mean, to put it in front of you. And you just basically, since it's tax time, you've got all the information that you normally would need anyhow. And,
right.
So you're telling me that 3 days later there's money going to be deposited in a bank account?
That's what they're supposed to be doing. But you can imagine The demand is higher than anything they've ever seen. So I would be stunned if they can get back to everybody in 3 days. In fact, we've heard they haven't. And it's not that you're going to get a call from somebody. You're only going to get a call if what you submitted is inaccurate, or you'll get an email telling you the information is inaccurate, as I've been told by people. But you're supposed to get that money within 3 days. Just deposit it into your account to get you through those immediate needs.
Now, this is a guy, Joe's Welding Service, who's got a welder in the back of his truck, the name on the side of his truck, and doing business as Joe's Welder. Who else? I guess Mary's, whatever business Mary has. Cleaning service or accountant, anybody like that. They're 1099 people are eligible for this, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We have people who work out here as photographers, or who might work, just on an assignment basis on all sorts of things. It could be even a realtor. They may have had a number of opportunities to make money. They had deals fall apart, and they just need some money to keep things going. But again, it's not you're not meant to be able to get from that big extra amounts of money. This is just meant to be money that's going to get you through, tomorrow, basically.
Okay, so they're basically...
So that's one thing. You can get that $10,000, right? The next one that comes up on Friday, this is the biggest one, I think, for a lot of gig or 1099 workers, is that Paycheck Protection Program. And we should probably talk about that for businesses. Well, I guess we can talk about them all together here. So the Paycheck Protection Program is meant to give you the equivalent of 2 months of income, and it goes up to $100,000 per year per person. And so that's the majority of the money you get. Now, it will also give you money for utilities, for health care benefits, and there are some other things that they allow as well. Best thing, again, you can go to the SBA.gov website and get all the specifics to see which things are includable. But let's just make a really simple example so that everybody understands what I'm talking about. Okay? Let's say somebody's making $5,000 a month, and now they're not making that $5,000 a month. And they pay $1,000 in healthcare costs every month, just making their monthly medical payments for themselves and their family, right? So that means they're getting $6,000 a month. So to multiply that by 2, that's $12,000 that you can get through PPP. But now you get some money for utilities and the rest. So 6,000 times 2 is 12. You get 25% more than that to cover those other expenses. So that would be another $3,000. So you can get $15,000 in forgivable loans through that PPP program that the SBA are sponsoring.
Wow. So in addition to the 10, you're going to get another whatever.
Well, there can't be you can't double dip, all right? So in all these programs, you can't double dip. So just make sure as you're doing this that you're not applying for the same thing twice.
Okay.
If you got money from one and you're getting money from another, you can't get it for the same purpose twice.
That's out of the SBA.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Ask the question.
All right. So there's people who have small businesses being told that you can also file for unemployment insurance, even though you're a sole proprietor. Now, does that prevent you from getting the SBA money?
No, that's the thing. But what you're going to have to do, again, there's no double dipping. So as you're going about doing your forms, you have to make sure that they know that you've received these other funds through unemployment. And that's the thing. You're going to find a lot of people in unemployment may be better off just staying there versus going to the PPP, because you'll get more money through there. As an example, I think everybody that's on unemployment is getting an extra $600 a week for a short period of time during this pandemic. And they've already extended unemployment benefits to 39 weeks or 9 months, right? And you'd have to assume they're going to extend it more. So you might be better off just being on unemployment because of the extra things that you get when you're on unemployment.
All right, so let me go back to that question. So if you've applied for unemployment and you also apply for SBA, you can't get both?
You can't double dip. There's no double dipping here.
So should somebody not apply for unemployment if they're applying for SBA, or do they apply for everything and then turn down whichever one you don't want?
I think it comes down to how much money you make. If you don't make a lot, right? Let's just say that you're making $30,000, $40,000 a year. You'll probably find that the unemployment approach might be the best option.
Okay.
If you're making $100,000 a year, you might find again that now PPP is a better option. because you get a higher amount. Let's pretend somebody was making $100,000 a year, right? That means that they'd be getting $8,333 for 2 months. That might be sufficient for them.
All right, let's focus in on the people making...
It's a little... you see the confusion here, right?
Yeah.
And there's no real way that you can say, I should do this program or I should do that program. And everybody's so busy, there's no one to answer the questions.
Well, you are, so...
Yeah, but But if you were just calling, like, as an example, this PPP program you can go through the SBA, but the truth is they're going to refer it back to a bank. And a bank is going to be the one that's processing that application.
All right. All right, so the big question is, because, you talk to people, small business owners, comparing notes, saying, hey, go apply for this, and by the way, apply for the unemployment, and you're suggesting that if your income's at, $20,000, $30,000 a year off your small sole proprietorship, forget the SBA and go with the unemployment.
I think so. I mean, again, these things are changing every day. They've changed the language. I've seen language changed as recently as Thursday night at 7 p.m. Now, this is last Thursday, so we're doing this on Sunday. So you can see. And then even banks now that are in this program. Like, I'll use Chase as an example because they're one of the largest banks in the country, and they're probably the most organized at this point. I have a business account there. What did they do? They sent us all out notes through when you log into your account to see your balances. And they gave you the ability to basically line up in the queue to get this PPP assistance. Now, they're going to be calling us when they're ready to be able to help. But what they're having to do is, you can imagine, these banks are now being hit by every single relationship they have. And I mean, nobody's set up for that kind of volume, right?
Yeah, I would say, it's like...
Nobody is.
Well,
so what they're doing... Go ahead.
No, never mind. I was going to make a short little quip comment, but it's okay. We can let that one go. You go ahead.
Man.
I was just going to say, wait, I put out the call last week for people to call in, and my board got overrun with me as the only operator here. The same trouble I had getting you on the line. So, yeah, all right. Anyhow, we know about that. Okay, let's go. Keep going.
So here's the challenge. Now, the banks just got the direction, final rules on Thursday around 7 o'clock. And if you want, just to give you a little bit of history on this whole thing, according to reports, now this is all reports out of the media, so you can either trust it or you can look at it with a hairy eyeball. According to what they said, this was initially they were going to try to run these things through the SBA, and the SBA would then somehow get this out to the banks or to the individuals. And it's clear this overwhelms the system. So how do you help people more? Well, you get a bigger net that can help more people. They have people that can assist you, right? And so they did a pivot, about 10, 12 days ago, where they were going to now roll this out through the banks so the banks could get this to the people faster and could get the money to the people faster. Well, since it only came live on Thursday, a lot of banks have no idea what they're dealing with. Not every bank is Chase. A lot of banks are not that big and that technologically savvy. So as a result, you're not necessarily getting right information from anyone. I'll tell you that as of Friday, before the first day that this thing went live, we had banks that we were talking to that said we're not going to participate. We had banks like, here, I'll give you one, Bank of America.
Well, hold that thought. I got a hard break I got to take.
Right, cool.
We'll get back there. We're with Had and Libby going over all this money you can get, but we're sorting through it. So we'll back with more here. Had, and hang on. We'll be right through this.
Read about it tomorrow. See it tonight. Hear it all day today. If it's happening in the Coachella Valley, it's front and center now on iHub Radio.
And there it is.
Now, here's Russ Betts.
All right, we're back. And we're back. Let's get this bumper music turned down and see if we can get this show on the roll again. All right, we're here trying to figure out what's all this help that's out there, how to get it. And we've got an expert on the line, Had and Libby, with Winslow Drake, who basically does this for a living. Now, the rest of us don't. We're all trying to sort through it. I know we are for our hair salon, and I'm dutifully taking notes, as you should be. Haddon, welcome to the Russ Betts Show. Good to have you on here with us.
Thanks, Russ.
Okay, good. All right, we made it through all that. All right, so let's pick up where we left off.
Yeah, sure.
And where I want to go with this is, I'm an ordinary Joe out there, ordinary Jane, and I got a business that's shut down, or I'm open, but business is way under what it should have been, and I need some help. Or I'm a renter that's, all of a sudden out of work, and I got my landlord saying, hey, you got eviction protection, but that doesn't last forever. Or you're a landlord who, doesn't have any money coming in. Yeah. So let's just try and go through each one of those. Let's try and figure out, where people taking notes at home, what do they need to know, and where's this going to go?
Well, one of the things they can know, you can come to me anytime you like. If you want, just go to my Facebook page. My name's spelled HADDONLIBBY, and I'm posting everything there for people that need it. It's public. You don't even have to be a friend, but anything on this front is being posted as public. It's there. I'm also putting things on winslowdrake.com under the news function where you can find forums and some more detail. So those are some places you can go. But truthfully, the best places to go for most of the information would be SBA.gov. They have most of the information there. I know the city of Palm Desert has done a really good job at getting all of these links available to their citizenry. So that's another great place where you can get links to take you to most of these things.
And all the cities have these pages. Desert Hot Springs hasn't been a slouch in any of this, but I'm looking at one of the announcements that goes out is the new $10,000 of advance is available now, and go apply for it, which is what you're saying. Except there's some nuance there that. You've got to sort out what your particular situation is. And if you go apply for $10,000, that may be all you get, where it may be much more beneficial for you to go for the unemployment insurance.
That's on the low end. But, for the average business, right? For the typical business, a restaurant, a hair salon, an insurance agent, think through the typical businesses. You want to go for that emergency $10,000 to start. The second thing you want to do as a business is you want to go to the Paycheck Protection Program for essentially the free money that it affords, which the free money itself, you can get more than the free money to run your business, just so to be clear. You can get it, but if you just want the free money, essentially the grant money, that would be 2 months of salaries, plus benefits, plus a 25% overage above all of that for rent and utilities, or mortgage and utilities. That one's the next thing you should do. And that's available to small business right now. On April 10th, it'll be available to 1099 workers who are also small businesses. They just paid in a different way, right?
All right, so...
now, that loan program... Go ahead.
Well, you're also going to want to take stock of what your particular situation is. If you've handled your finances really well and you're adverse to loans... You don't necessarily want to go get one of these loans that's going to be paying 2 or 3% for 30 years. That's out there that they're talking about. You're going to say, hey, I don't need any of this. But
get this, the Paycheck Protection Program, you can get a loan, I believe right now, it was changing. I believe it's a 2-year loan at this point. Over the last week, it's bounced on how long the loan is for. But it's only at a 1% rate. That's the cheapest money you're ever going to find. So if you think you can pay it back within 2 years... you definitely want to take as much as you can from that Paycheck Protection Program.
Okay.
Because it's the cheapest one you can get. And one thing everybody needs to remember when you're in situations like this, the damage and the time that you're not making the money you're used to will go much longer than you think. So right now it's really critical to find all the cash reserves that you can. Okay? So I would go for the free money is that 2 months of salaries plus benefits plus some of your rent and utilities. If you need more money through year end, put it together as a statement, an income statement, so that they know how much you need and go for more. But if you only want the money that will be forgiven in about 90 days, just do that one calculation I told you, and that's the amount you should take there. And just so you know. But wait, there's more. There are other options too. So, shall I just go into it?
Hey, let's go. You're the expert. I'm going to sit here and try and listen and stay out of the way.
I'm telling you, it's complicated, and there's not one resource for all of this stuff. So that's why it's a real, it's sort of like advanced, I don't know, maybe like a 2-level chess match or something,
Yeah, well, when I jump in, it's going to be to bring you back to, let's keep this simple. So, all right, let's go on to the next subject, which would be Picket.
Okay, so to what? What was that?
Let's pick the next group of people we're going to help. Let's talk about.
So I'm just going to. Okay, so So let me finish this really quick. So what we've gone through so far is maybe unemployment is your solution. Maybe the Paycheck Protection Program is your solution for part of it. If you're a business, there's another a disaster loan function that they have over at SBA.gov, and that's a loan that can be for 10 years at 3.75%, and that can be for as much as $10 million. So that's another program you should definitely start applying for. You may not get that money until June. So that's another way to get more money than what we've discussed. The fastest loans are if you're asking for $25,000 or less. If they're larger than $25,000, those take a while.
All right, Haddon, I'm up against another break. Can you hang on through this one?
Sure.
Okay, all right, we'll be right back here. Haddon Libby helping us sort through all this free money. Here we are on the Russ Betts Show on iHub Radio, back with more.
The conversation of your life. Local, relevant, digital, and always on.
America will hear my 2 cents.
Elected to serve iHub Radio listeners across the desert cities. He calls it as he sees it.
Quick question.
Now, here's Russ Betts.
Someone answer him now!
All right, well, welcome back to the Russ Betts Show. We're talking about all kinds of free money coming up. And I want to give a little bump because we got a guest who is coming on just a little bit later in the segment, Jim Fitzgerald, who started out in California thinking he had a great job opportunity going in the corporate world, but required him to relocate. Packs up, gets in his car, tries to relocate. Halfway through, all this hits, and when he gets there, he finds out, well, everything's shut down. Now what do I do? So we're going to get those details from him. That's coming up just a little bit later. But right now, we're going to get back to Haddon Libby, who's at Winslow Drake, and basically does all this stuff for a living all the time. So he's particularly adept at letting us know what we need to do. So Haddon, welcome back to the Russ Betts Show, and let's get back into this.
So we've already talked about the part where people can get assistance through SBA or the government, right? But two things you asked earlier on that we haven't even totally addressed yet. How are some of the individuals that may be getting 1099s going to deal with it? We've dealt with some of it here. And also, how are landlords going to get paid, right? Those are two really good questions that you asked. So let's just go with the individuals for a second that might be a 1099 worker or just own their own business, right? So we've talked through those lending parts. But people should also know, if you have a 401k, if you're one of the people that's been fortunate enough to be able to earn enough to save and put money away for a rainy day, well, this is probably one of your rainy days. It's meant for retirement, but sometimes before retirement, we have a rainy day we have to take care of, right? So, to that end, the 401k, you can take loans of up to $100,000 against your 401k, and guess what? You don't pay any interest rate. Well, you pay yourself an interest rate, okay? So you'd have to pay yourself back over a 5-year period. And you can take up to $100,000 that way with no penalties. Now, if you don't think you can pay it back because things are that bad, it's cool. No problem. You can take the money out and like you would normally. But the thing is, most people are used to a 10% penalty for taking money out before they're 59.5. Well, they've waived that for this event. And also, the taxes that you'd normally be due, because you've never been taxed on these monies, those monies that would normally be taxed, so say you take out the $100,000, you'd owe, let's just call it 15% in taxes for the year. So you'd have to pay $15,000 of that in taxes. Well, guess what? Because of this, the government said, you know what? You're going to be able to pay that over 3 years. So that's $5,000, $5,000, $5,000.
All right, so they didn't
give more money today.
They didn't give up the tax. I was waiting for that to be the punchline, as they've forgiven the tax. They didn't forgive the tax. So basically, the practical reality is you're sitting there saying, how dire is my situation? I've had this 401k that I've been trying to save up. Now, those 401ks have dropped at the recent market plunge, haven't they? Mm-hmm. So this isn't necessarily the time to take that out. So you're going to decide, I'm in such a dire situation here. Everything's going to be lost. I've got no choice but to go get into this 401k money. And the only break I'm getting is that I only have to pay the tax over 3 years. Is that about have it right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, all right. So, and a lot of people don't have a 401k. This is America. Exactly. Nobody saves. One thing about China.
That's true.
One thing about China that they didn't face is when they told everybody don't work for 2 months, That doesn't phase them a bit. They could go 2 years without working. People think, everybody over in China is poor, but they're not. They all have at least 2 years worth of savings to ride through this. This is where we're in trouble as Americans, is we have no savings. So anyhow, all right, let's go on to the next one, a landlord. How's a landlord doing?
Just to finish on what you said there, Russ, 67% of the U.S. workforce is at risk, all right? So that's why they're putting these programs in place. They want you to stay with your employment, with your company, and not just have everybody on furlough or unemployed until the thing blows over. We could have we won't be 67%, but the Fed said it could get as high as 32%. All right, so that's why they're trying to keep people together.
All right, so before we run out of time,
landlords.
Yeah, before we run out of time, let's help the landlords.
And that's the quick thing. So a landlord is going to have a lot of tenants who are not going to be paying. I've already been helping a couple that are in that situation, and the answer is you get your tenants all of this information, because I've found that a lot of tenants to these buildings are so crazed on just trying to keep their lives together. They don't know how to go through this labyrinth of different aid and ways to get through things. And so what then the landlord really needs to do is give this information that we've just been talking about on the show here today. They need to give that information to their tenants so that they have the ability to now assess which of these options are best for them and then begin the applications. Because I can tell you point blank, multiple businesses are so busy just trying to get by, they don't really know any of these things, and the information that's out there is poor at best.
Well, all right, so the answer for the landlord is, if you want to get your rent, you better help your renter find all that money that's out there for them so that they can continue to pay your rent. And I think there's I think there's some feeling among renters as well. We've got this eviction ordinance, which was a good measure to put in place because, before all this stuff can kick in, you got people getting evicted. So that was good. And
also remember, and remember, the landlords now can go to their banks. In fact, anybody that has a mortgage or any kind of debt, you can go to your bank. They've amended the rules for the banks so that they can do forbearance. And what they'll do is they'll take any payments over the next 2, 3, 4 months. Some of them will even give you a year of relief. And they'll take all those payments, they'll just push them to the end of the loan. So if you didn't pay for the next 6 months, they'll just push them. The loan will be 6 months longer, and those payments will be on the end.
Some banks are doing that, but I'm hearing from some people, the guy who's at the county SBA said he went to his bank, and they said, nope, we're not doing that. So it's not every bank that's doing that, right?
Hey, I'll give you it's already just anecdotal. This will all get fixed over a few days because, remember, most of these plans are fairly new. They're in the last few days they've been rolled out. But Bank of America was telling a lot of their clients that they'll make these paycheck protection program loan. They'll help you if you have a loan with them, but they won't help you if you're a depository-only relationship. That's an absolutely wrong reading of it. And you also have to pay attention that a lot of banks have some unscrupulous lenders in them. We've heard that at big banks as well as basically independent lenders who place your loan brokers. So they're taking this program and they're trying to make extra money off it, which is supposed to be illegal, but I've seen anecdotally, I'll give you one example. City National, if you want to get one of these paycheck protection program loans through them, that'll turn into a grant, they're charging an extra 0.5% for their effort to help you document it, even though the government's paying them 5% for the loan. And then some banks are trying to up the loan that's 1%. They're trying to make it a 4, 7, 8% loan. So you have to be really careful that you're dealing with a scrupulous lender. And even the big ones, it's still confusing there. So don't be surprised if wrong information's out and they're handling it incorrectly.
Well,
it'll get fixed.
Surprise, a banker trying to figure out how to make money. I mean, go back to the movie It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Potter making out like a bandit when everybody else is panicking. So I don't know if anybody watches that. It's a great movie. All right. So... Well, I got you here. You've got some experience in this. Is this going to be a 1946 era V curve? Or are we going to be in like Jimmy Carter era malaise with eventually getting high interest rates because all this free money pumping out there? What do you see on this? There's a big debate going on right now about how this is going to play out. Are we in a Great Depression?
Yes, we're in a Great Depression.
Okay, but
we will be. It's sort of like watching a slow train wreck at the moment. But the recovery is going to be more like it'll be more like a W. But think of it with multiple. You know that middle part of a W. That's going to be lower than the top parts. and it's going to have multiples. There'll be 4 or 5 up and downs before we get to the other end. And the reason for that is you're going to have people will get through this, but then you're going to have small businesses that fail, so that'll have to be digested and put through the whole economy. You're going to have like the J.C. Penney's of the world that are, I don't know how they survive. So you'll have waves in different industries where there will be failures. The oil and gas industry is having big problems because of what Russia and the Saudis are doing to drive down the price to bankrupt a lot of our frackers.
Well, the airline and the airline industry is certainly taking a hit. I mean, Delta announced immediate 60% cut, and American about 80% of their flights are done. They're parking their planes. You know, the analogy I use, and I hope it doesn't get to this, but at the fall of the Roman Empire, maybe 10 years after, you had somebody camped out underneath one of those aqueducts that used to provide the municipal services. You know, city engineers did the same thing back then they do now. And they're sitting there looking at this aqueduct, and maybe it's cracked, it's out of repair, there's no water up there, but it's still fresh in their mind that 10 years ago, you know, this was a thriving, booming economy. But we're not going to that extent. This thing isn't a total crash.
Right. It depends on your business. You know, if you're a restaurant owner, it is that. If you're, you know, in the travel business, it is that. You know, so if you're small hoteliers may be in that situation. So it's going to be a case in point. Each situation, each sector is going to be handled differently.
And that'll be us driving down the road and saying, "Wow, I remember that business that used to be there." Where there's a casualty of all this. That's the personal devastation for people. And
we're going to see a lot of businesses consolidate. I think one of the areas where you'll see the greatest consolidation is probably the banks, because the little banks. You saw we had all of our little banks out here got wiped out 12 years ago, right? And I think you're going to now see more banks that will have to come together because they'll have lots of clients who are going to fail. Well, the way that banks survive through those things is they merge with others so they can take the capital they have to pay down the losses that they have. So, and it's not just going to be banks. You'll see that across many industries. It's just that banks have a real challenge making money in this scenario. So that's one area you should see it.
Well, they're not the only ones.
Across the board.
They're not the only ones. We got people now who are going on 4 weeks of their businesses being closed. And
I know.
Wow.
So that remember, if you don't have cash until some of this emergency cash gets to you from all these different sources. Oh, restaurant workers, they can get an extra $500 just to pay their bills. There are options out there as well, and you can get those. So there's lots of programs coming out. That's why I'd say just come to my Facebook page. Anything that's interesting or you're confused, lost, just come see me, and I'll help you out. I'm not charging a penny for any of this stuff. It's just trying to do something for the community.
All right. Well, the way I usually work is I'll get this. I'm going to go listen to the podcast of this again later and take more careful notes because I'm so distracted here trying to pay attention to the time and everything else. We still got time, by the way. And then I'm probably going to see if maybe you're available to come back next week and follow up on some of this. By then, I'll have some questions coming in through email through the station and viewers or listeners listening to see what's going on. And if you're available, I'd love to get you back on.
Yeah, I'm talking to a good friend of mine, Frank, over at Palm Springs Life, and we're thinking about doing a town hall just to get this information out to people so that they can do a question and answer with a bunch of people. Hard thing we've had is finding the professionals that will talk in a Q&A format because it's also new. No one wants to keep bad information, so they're not giving any information, they're directing them to websites, which are too confusing. And we just figured, we think we need to do something for all the gig workers, 1099ers, our friends who are trying to figure out what to do. And what we've told a lot of them is, hey, don't pay your rent if that's a problem. Talk to your landlord. They'll work it out with you, one way or the other. Don't pay your utilities. Save that until you have the ability to take care of yourself until some of this money starts coming in. Remember, most people are going to get those $1,200 stimulus checks in the next week to 10 days. That'll help out a lot.
Yeah, well, then the landlord's going to be saying, hey, I know you got your check. How about paying the rent? And they're going to be saying, hey, I got to make sure I got enough money for food. I'm not going to pay.
Exactly.
Exactly. Wow.
And that's where you'd have to say to them, hey, I've applied for A, B, or C. As soon as that money comes in, we'll talk.
All right. Okay.
But some of it is just having to do like the good old neighborly thing where you just work the best you can, and if you can't pay something, just wait on it until things settle out because you have to take care of your family first.
All right.
You have to put food on the table.
Sure. Appreciate you coming on like this. And I know this might sound like an infomercial. It's not. This is all benevolent. Had and Libby helping out everybody in a crisis. So really appreciate that. And I know you do this for a living, but right now, like everybody else, we're just having to all pitch in. So thank you very much for being here with us today.
Anytime. Have a great Sunday.
Okay, this is Russ Betts on iHub Radio, and we're back with Jim Fitzgerald and a tale you won't want to miss.